Okay, this review is broken into 3 parts. I'm doing it by the page number, so if you don't need the problems from page 1, then you can skip to the other videos. Okay, topic 23. This is factoring completely and solving basically by using zero product property, but solving quadratics and other expressions basically by factoring. First step you always want to do is factor out whatever's in common after you get it equal to 0. So it has to be moved everything to one side so it equals 0. Factor out anything in common. So I can take out an 8. Each one of these has an x. So I took out 8x. That leaves me with x squared minus x minus 6. Then to factor this, I need two numbers that multiply to give me negative 6, but add to give me negative 1. So that would be x plus 2 times x minus 3. Once I have my terms, I set them each equal to 0. So 8x equals 0, so x equals 0. X plus 2 equals 0, I get x equals negative 2. X minus 3 equals 0, I get x equals 3. On B, do the same thing. Set it equal to 0, which it already is. I look for a number that will go into all of them. It may be hard to tell about 288, but you can test it on your calculator. Do 288 divided by 8, and you'll get 36. So I factor out an 8. There's no other x's on here, so I can't take out an x this time. So I had x squared minus 5x minus 36. Two numbers that multiply to give me negative 36, but add to give me negative 5. So one number is going to be positive, one's negative. If I use negative 9 and positive 4, I get 4x, negative 9x will add up to negative 5x. So I get x plus 4 equals 0, so x equals negative 4. X minus 9 equals 0, so x equals 9. 8 can't equal 0, so I don't have to worry about the 8. On C, first thing you need to do is move everything to one side. Keep the square part positive, because if you don't, it's going to be too hard to factor. So I move the x to the other side, so it became negative x. Move 24 to the other side, it's negative 24 equals 0. Then, if you do and use the box method right here, 3x squared goes in this corner, negative 24 here. You multiply these two together, gives you negative 72x squared. So I'm going to look for two numbers that multiply to give me negative 72x squared, but are going to add to negative x. Well, 72 is 9 times 8. So if I make it negative 9x and 8x, I will get my combination. Then what I always do is I look at what's in common going across this way and factor it out. So I can factor out a 3x. Once you have one term, you can figure out all the rest. 3x times x gives me 3x squared. 3x times negative 3 gives me negative 9x. X times 8 will give me 8x. So that should be a plus 8. And just to make sure, I should get negative 3 times 8 is negative 24. That acts as your check. So this factors to 3x plus 8 times x minus 3. We set them each equal to 0. So this is 3x plus 8 equals 0. You can subtract 8 from both sides and then divide by 3. You should get negative 8 thirds. Here I have x minus 3 equals 0. I add 3, I get x equals 3. Simplifying with square roots, we have square root of 160 over 10. You cannot reduce this to make it square root of 16. You can only reduce square roots with square roots and regular numbers with numbers. So 160 can be broken down to 16 times 10. 16 is 4 times 4, which is 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. 10 is 2 times 5. So after I break it down, I can take out a 2, take out another 2. Left hand side, I have a 2 and a 5. So I got 4 root 10 over 10. 4 and 10 reduced to 2 over 5. So it's 2 root 10 over 5. For this next one, 48, 4 times 12. 4 breaks down to 2 times 2. 12 is 4 times 3. 4 breaks down to 2 times 2. So I can take out a 2, take out another 2. Left hand side is 3. So I got 4 root 3. 18, 3 times 6. 6 is 3 times 2. I can take out a 3. Left hand side I've got root 2. 27 is 9 times 3. So if you want to make a shortcut, 9 times 3, square root of 9 is 3, so you get 3 root 3. Or break it down and find your pairs. Now when I'm combining them, they have to match. It's kind of like adding x's and y's. So 4 root 3 minus 3 root 3 gives me 1 root 3, and then I just have the 3 root 2. Okay, solving perfect square problems. This is where I want to isolate the square in order to solve it. So first thing I'm going to do is add 100, divide by 9. Then to get rid of a square, we take the square root. Every time you take a square root, you should do plus or minus. So plus or minus the square root of 100 over 9. Square root of 100 is 10. Square root of 9 is 3. So I got plus or minus 10 thirds. For the next one, I'm going to add 11. So I got 100. Then divide by 4, because I want to get the square part by itself. It gives me 25. Take the square root of both sides. So I take square root of 25. I get plus or minus 5. So I get a plus or minus a square root. So I have 2x minus 1 is either equal to 5, or 2x minus 1 equals negative 5. Subtract 1 from both sides. Divide by 2. I get x equals negative 3. Subtract 1. I get 2x equals 4. Divide by 2, I get x equals 2. You should anticipate whenever you have a square of having two answers. Look at the next one. We have 3x squared minus 72. I'm going to add 72. Divide by 3. Take the square root. It's plus or minus the square root of 24. You want to simplify this. So 24 is 4 times 6. So I've got the square root of 4 times 6. Well, square root of 4 is 2. Root 6. That's a little shortcut for doing these. If you look at this next one, again, I want to get the square by itself. So I subtract 17 from both sides. Gives me 64. Again, I want to get this the square part by itself, so I divide it by 2. Take the square root of both sides. I got plus or minus the square root of 32. I'm going to think of the biggest number that I can take out, perfect square, that's in 32. Well, 32 is 16 times 2. Square root of 16 is 4. That makes it go a little bit faster if you know that technique. So 4 root 2 is plus or minus x plus 6. So I subtract 6, get negative 6 plus or minus 4 root 2. Okay, when we're solving by completing the square, you need to get the x's on one side and the numbers on the other side. So this one already starts off this way. To figure out what you add to both sides, you take half of this term in front of the x and square it. So I take 7 squared is 49. I added 49 to both sides. This then becomes a perfect square because it factors to x plus 7 times x plus 7. So I got x plus 7 squared equals 55. Now it's like the problems above. Take the square root. I get plus or minus the square root of 55. X plus 7 equals that. This doesn't simplify. That's 5 times 11. So we got negative 7 plus or minus the square root of 55. Okay, so I need to move a couple things around here. I need to move the 12x with the x squared. I need to move the 4 to the other side. So I got x squared minus 12x is equal to, move the 4 to the other side, is negative 4. Half of negative 12 is negative 6. When I square it, I add 36 to both sides. So I just added the 36 right after the 12, and did plus 36 under negative 4. Gives me 32. This becomes x minus 6 times x minus 6, or x minus 6 squared. And if you've done the technique, the terms here is this term. So this term was squared. Then half of this term, half of negative 12 is negative 6. Square root plus or minus square root of 32, which we just did a little while ago, was 4 root 2, equals x minus 6. Add 6. You get 6 plus or minus 4 root 2. So again, I want to get all my squares on one side, keeping the squares positive. So I'm going to subtract x squared. I'll leave the negative 8 on the other side. Half of negative 8 is negative 4. Squared is 16, so I added 16 to both sides. This becomes x minus 4 squared. Take the square root. Square root of 8, well, 8 is 4 times 2. Square root of 4 is 2, so I get 2 root 2. Then I can add 4. Okay, if you don't need to do the other problems, they'll be on the next video. So it'll be on page 2 of the video.